What's going on, you guys? Theo here with the big review, back yet again with another King of Fighters All-Star guide. And today we are going to be going over the much requested and much debated Reviving Hell's Dungeon. So before we get too far into this video, if you guys did not hear in yesterday's video, I announced the details on our first ever giveaway. We're giving away a $25 either iOS or Android gift card this weekend to one lucky subscriber. So if you want that, if you need that money, then go ahead and check that video out. Link is in the description below, and you can figure out how to enter. So with that being said, let's talk about Reviving Hell's Dungeon. Now, before I get started on the guide, I want to let you guys know, if you couldn't tell from the title of this video, because I'm putting something in there about it somewhere, this video, and I intended to be one video, and then it was like 30 minutes of footage, and I wasn't even done yet. So, rip. Not going to happen. Instead, we are going to be breaking this up into two separate videos for the sake of all of us. So this first part is going to be discussing some misnomers in the intro here about the Reviving Hell's Dungeon, because I have noticed that there are some things that people seem to get mixed up about RHD and kind of misconceptions. So I want to get those out of the way. We're going to take a look at a spreadsheet in tomorrow's video that will go through and break down every single detail about the requirements for the different tiers. But in today's video, the first thing I wanted to talk about was going to pertain to XP capsules, where to get them, how to get them, yada, yada, yada. The thing is I've noticed a ton of people, and I get a lot of guide requests, but a ton of people have asked me, not even just on this channel, but in general, how do you farm XP capsules for your awakened characters? Your characters are also such high level. How did you get all those capsules? Well, I hate to be the one to be the bearer of bad news to everyone, and we're going to go through in this first part of this guide and show you the different ways of getting these capsules. But the hardest part about this, and it's by design, this is endgame material that we're talking about here. Reviving Hell's Dungeon, for all intents and purposes, is going to be endgame material. There is no really great way of getting XP capsules outside of the obvious ones. So the easiest way is to go ahead and just play RHD every day. That is the biggest thing. So what a lot of people don't realize, and when I go into these examples of places you can get these XP caps, they don't really necessarily, just because you have, 4 or 5 level 50 characters, just start giving you extra ones. That isn't how this works. You have to grind. It's a grind. This is probably the grindiest of all the modes in the game. And that's even considering epic quest involved in this game. But, really it comes down to just making sure that you grind through RHD every single day. And by that, what I mean, the first thing that you're going to want to do, and this pertains whether you are somebody who is lowest tier or highest tier, first thing you're always going to want to do with RHD is you're going to want to get yourself to a point where if you get stuck, you can comfortably at least grind yourself up through daily to the boss of that tier. And then the next day, grind up to the boss of that tier again. Next day, grind up through the boss of that tier, so on and so forth. So that way, not only can you get your auto clear rewards, but you can also get the drop rewards. The higher the level in the tier you're in, my recommendation is to try and get into the high numbers of whatever tier you're in. So if you're in the, teens, try to get, 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there, and grind that every day. If you're in the 20s, 28, 29, whatever the case may be, whatever tier you're in, so on and so forth. Reason being is because that's around the tiers where you're going to be getting the most bang for your buck, the most for your time invested every day into grinding through those tiers. And that is going to be the most reliable way to get XP capsules for your characters. It might take you a few weeks. That's okay. But really, it just comes down to making sure you're doing it. It doesn't matter. This isn't a race. You're not in competition with anyone. As much as everybody I know would love to be able to have all these characters maxed out, it takes time. Even for me, it took me forever on some of the tiers. I would go a couple of weeks sometimes just grinding and leveling up characters until my teams for each color were at a point where they averaged out to be where they needed to be to move on. Which brings me to my next point before we get into where you can get more XP capsules. And my next point is, besides being patient with it, really it just comes down to balancing out your teams. The one thing that people tend to forget is these different levels, whenever it comes to clearing these stages, specifically the ones below tier 40, are going to be asking for an average level for your character. So basically, if you have one character on the team, say you're in the 30s, and you have two characters at level 35, one at level 30, that averages out to be enough to get through level 35. So it doesn't necessarily require you to have all these characters at, the proper level. It's just that you want to at least have two characters on the team at the proper level or better in order to get there. And tomorrow we'll talk about characters that are ideal for RHD, characters that, while maybe not ideal for most of the game, they are ideal for RHD because they're going to have requirements for their color or their typing or both at some point whenever you get into the higher levels. But I really just wanted to kind of clear that up going into this and go over that kind of strategy so people know that, if you have a character that you don't have an extra memory for, or you're looking for extra memories for, and you can't get them up to the level that you need because you can't awaken them any further, as long as they're within 5 levels of that tier and the rest of your characters on that colored team are good enough to get through it, you don't have to worry about it. You won't be suffering any penalties. Like when it comes to my Eileene as a good example, I am able to take her into tier 43 even though she's only level 30 because my other characters on that team are level 45 or 50. So it doesn't matter because the average ends up being higher. So I hope that clears a few things up for you guys. I just wanted to get into that before we get into the video, but basically, the long and the short of it is, it's going to take you a while. There is no magic way of doing this. Nobody's withholding any information from you. Us high-level players or us players that are higher tiers, we're not hiding things. But let's go ahead, get into the video, and talk about the first thing that we want to talk about as it pertains to getting these caps. Now, for those of you who are not aware of what Rite of Passage is, basically it is the other game mode right below the Reviving Hell's Dungeon in the same area of the game, and basically you are going to be able to fight between 3 and 5 different characters. Are always going to be random, and it will choose them before you go into the next mission. You can do it up to 3 times a day. Thankfully, you can go ahead and auto-clear it after the first run, and it will kind of duplicate the rewards that you will get whenever you do that from the first run that you did. So basically, it's going to scale with the Reviving Hell's Dungeon, so it's almost a sister mode to it, but by that what I mean is you will notice that the level of the characters that I'm facing on my end are level 43 Awaken. Reason being is because I'm on tier 43 of the Reviving Hell's Dungeon. And for those of you who do not do this daily and are trying to step up your game as far as awakening your characters and getting the most out of getting them leveled up, you will want to go ahead and do this. Reason being is because it does give some XP caps. And we'll go ahead and we'll skip to the rewards here in just a moment, and I'll show you guys that so that you don't have to watch me clear this, but we'll go ahead and show you that. You'll notice down here that you can also turn on restrictions, which will give you extra coins, but that's up to you on whether or not you want to do that. So I will be right back. We're going to go ahead and get through this, and I'll show you the rewards for this. Alrighty guys, the first thing I want to show you is after you get your initial 3 wins in this, and like I said, it is between 3 and 5 wins, and your rewards are going to scale with how well you do and how far you progress into these 5 fights. So you basically want to do all 5 every day. So, like I said, you can skip through the next 2 runs because you can do 3 runs total a day, but I'm going to go ahead and show you that as well. But definitely make sure that you go through the full 5 every day. I don't know that it necessarily affects your capsule unlocks, but it definitely does affect your coins, which the coins you will definitely want to make sure that you're farming as many of them as you can because you can exchange those in the shop, and this is really the only good way of getting those coins, so that's the way you're going to want to do that. But we'll go ahead, we'll finish this out here, so long as Ash tends to be kind of a spoiler. The Reviving Hell Dungeon, or the Rite of Passage rather, can sometimes be a little tough, even for me. Every once in a while, especially if it's Ignis. A level 43 Awakened Ignis in this mode is a pain in the butt. We'll put it that way. But no issues here. Sometimes Ash can also be a pain in the butt because he likes to pop off that damage immunity constantly, but we got a good matchup there, so we're good. So there we go. We cleared all 5. So you'll see here there is a level 5 Awaken capsule that I can now add to my inventory, and if I repeat the calculation here, you're going to notice that I get the exact same rewards. So that's 3 total there that you can get for doing this, and basically it's going to give you the corresponding capsule to whatever tier you're in. So that's going to be kind of how that works. And then as you can see here, it is going to give me the random lineup for the next time I do this, which will be tomorrow. So there you go. So that is another way of getting capsules. Let's move on to the next way that you can pick up capsules that are not Rite of Passage or Reviving Hell's Dungeon. Alright, you guys, so the next thing I wanted to show you as far as how you can pick up these XP capsules is going to be the Guild Exchange Shop. Now, do note, this is not necessarily a thing I would recommend you use this for. Personally, to me, the capsules or even these Allstar tickets are more important because these guys here, as you can see, will also have the FES units in them. So to me, that's where I use my coins for the Guild Exchange Shop, but your mileage may vary. It depends on how kind of desperate you are to zerg your way through the RHD, because, I mean, you can get a few extra here, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. You know, maybe for the first 3 tiers, they're cheap enough to where it maybe makes sense, but for, like, for instance, me, 450 per at 5 a day doesn't really necessarily make sense. I mean, you're basically talking $22.50. That's almost as much as one of these tickets, and to me there's more value there, but again, that's up to preference. But this is another way that you can pick these up. This updated a little while ago. This didn't always used to be this way. Whenever they started to buff the Guild Exchange Shop, this was an addition that was very nice. So this is another option. If you guys want to use it, go right ahead. But I wanted to make sure that you were aware that those were there in case you weren't. So let's move on to the next way that you can get experience capsules. So the next way that you can get experience capsules is going to be in the Topaz shop. And again, this is another method I don't really recommend that you use. You may do so if you so like, but personally to me, Topaz should never be used on XP capsules. If you have Topaz for whatever reason laying around, then in my opinion, it should always be used on things like these tokens, even getting these hammers. Heck, if you want to save them up and get these memory selectors, do that too. Any of those things would be far preferable, in my opinion, than doing the XP capsules. But again, your mileage may vary. So that is another method. The other method, obviously, of getting these is sometimes, and I don't even know if there's any currently available, but sometimes the packages will also have some Awaken caps. Like, yeah, you'll see this one here. This one's going to have caps in it. So you can also spend money if you want to, and that is entirely up to you. My job is not to tell you how to spend your money. I don't know what your financial situation is. But what I can tell you is it really comes down to keeping an eye out for really good deals. Every once in a while they will release a deal or a package that's really, really good. It's my suggestion at that point to kind of assess where you're at, and if that seems like it has value to you, then you can do that. But otherwise, I really would not recommend this method. But beyond these ways, beyond all the things we've kind of talked about, beyond going through just the Reviving Hell's Dungeon itself, which is obviously the most optimal, obviously you have the Rite of Passage. That'll give you a couple. You can do the Guild Exchange Shop. You can do Topaz, or you can just physically buy them. So those are going to be the most kind of reliable ways of getting XP caps. Again, in my opinion now, as you can see, it's still that you should just kind of grind the RHD dungeon for these, but there are going to be various other methods here and there depending on kind of when we're talking. There might be an event going on that gives you some extra drops for these, or so on and so forth. So every once in a while you'll get one of those, and if those exist at the time, go ahead and make sure you're doing them, obviously. But I don't want to get too far into kind of some of those different things, because obviously that would kind of kill the kind of life expectancy of this video, because some of those methods aren't always going to be available. So I don't want to get into that too much. Like, for instance, right now with some of the 7 Nights stuff, you can actually get some extra capsules for the lower tiers, which is nice. So those types of things do come around, but these are going to be the main ways that you can get XP capsules. And the last thing I wanted to quickly go over, even though you don't get a ton out of them, you still do get some capsules from some of these. So if you go in here and you go to the rewards, you will see that the higher ranking you get, the more of these capsules and the higher rank capsules you'll get. So that is something to keep in mind. Anytime that these guys rotate in, you'll pretty much get the same rewards really. But when it comes to the caps, that's another way to do it. And then actually if you go over here to everyone's least favorite mode, you'll notice that these boxes here, I believe all of them give them in some capacity. Yeah, so there's those and then so on and so forth here. So that's another way that you can get these capsules, is just by doing kind of your daily stuff. If you do the spider robot daily, I'm sorry, but hey, that's another way that you can get these, is from some of these event missions. So pay attention to some of these rewards for some of these challenges and these dungeons. So that is going to be the last step that I wanted to go over. Now let's go ahead and segue into the overall summary of this video and talk about what we will be going over in tomorrow's. So in summary, guys, let's go over what we learned today. So the first big thing that I want you guys to take away from this video is that whenever you ask someone, how do you farm these capsules, really there isn't a great answer to that question. You don't necessarily have a whole lot of options. We've gone over the majority of them today, and as you can see, it is still going to be the best option overall, just grinding through the RHD on a daily basis. Now, for those of you who thinks that this is a bit of a grind, you are correct. It is a bit of a grind, but at the same time, again, to summarize, this is endgame content, and therefore it has to be treated as such. You shouldn't expect to be able to go in this and just be able to grind out what you need in 24 hours and be done with it. That isn't what this mode is meant to be. In fact, that is where I derive most of my enjoyment from this mode from, is the fact that it does take time. It does take effort. You do have to earn it. But most things in life worth having, you have to earn. So when it comes to this game, this is kind of going to be the time when you just have to try and remember, is it going to take me some time? I might have to sit on the same tier for a while, the same level for a while I get my teams up to speed, so that I can move on to the next one. But that's okay. That's what all of us have to do at some point. This is designed to stop you at certain points and intervals so that it takes some extra time. But that's okay. So really what you want to do and how you want to approach specifically kind of the early tiers is you just want to get yourself to a point where you're comfortable. If you're at a point where you feel like the power or the power creep is getting to the point where it's too much, then go ahead and stop on that tier just every day for a week or two while you're using the caps in the background that you're getting from clearing it every day on your characters to get them to the point where they're strong enough to move on to the next one. Just sit on that one, grind it up through to the boss, end it for the day, rinse and repeat the next day, so on and so forth. But eventually your teams are going to be rounded out. And speaking of rounded out your teams, the next thing I want to summarize is the fact that you don't have to have every single member of your team, of your 3-man team, be the level that they need to be in order to clear said dungeon. They only need to average out to that. So again, I would say focus on 2 characters on your team, probably the best characters for whatever team you're focused on at the time. You know, if we're talking about yellow, then focus on Lady Zero. Get her, if you're on tier 34, get her to level 35, 36, 37. The more you invest into those upper echelon characters, the more they're going to carry you. They're batteries, in my opinion, meaning that they power the entire team. We'll get more into that tomorrow when we talk about what characters to focus on specifically. But today I just wanted to focus on how to get the XP caps and how to approach this mode, because I feel like a lot of people get it backward. They think that they're supposed to be able to just kind of get as much of this XP capsules as they need, or they're missing something, and you're not missing anything. There's no secret. Nobody's withholding information. So really just comes down to grinding this out daily. I'm pretty religious with it, so if you're ever asking yourself how I'm where I'm at, that's why. But basically, go ahead, make sure that you have at least 2 members of your team that are going to be high level, maybe 4 or 5 levels higher than whatever tier you're on. It might take you an extra couple days of grinding out capsules, but that's okay. It'll pay off in the long run. So that is kind of what I wanted to go over today, guys, is just to clear some of that stuff up. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this video today and found it beneficial. Like I said, I had intended on making this into one video, but it would have just been way too long, and we're already approaching 20 minutes as it is. So tomorrow we'll go ahead and talk about characters that you can use, both ideal characters and then characters that are more budget options, so to speak. And we'll kind of get into that tomorrow with tomorrow's guide. But that is going to end it for me today, guys. If you enjoy this content and want to see more of it, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton as a new YouTuber. And I will see you guys in tomorrow's installment. You all take care. Have a good one. Thanks for watching.
Continue. Game over.